Howdy, folks. This is Dan Gross, and welcome to Extended Harmony for Outside In Music. Outside In Music is a media company and jazz record label that connects artists with their passionate fan bases. Please visit us at our website, outsideinmusic.com, where you can see our artists and their recent releases, our podcasts, video interviews, and links to get in touch with us. Extended Harmony, what you're watching or listening to right now, is a monthly podcast that features musicians in the jazz, blues, and soul umbrella who create original music. We discuss their lives, influences, their creative processes, and some advice they'd like to pass along. Joining us today is saxophonist, composer and arranger, bandleader, redoubler, an educator, and great person, Alexa Tarantino. She's originally from Connecticut, and this is another installment of our great Eastman alumni series. Alexa, I'm just going to call her by her first name, is a true rising star in the jazz world, especially on the alto sax. Among many other things, she runs her own jazz camp, subs in with jazz at Lincoln Center, is a part of the Diva Jazz Orchestra, and one or two other things. So thank you so much for tuning in, and enjoy. Alexa, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So I am very tempted to sort of go down a list and talk about everything that you do, but we don't have time for a 3-hour podcast, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing you a handful of times, and the stuff that we covered previously that hasn't changed too much. For everyone listening and or watching, we'll provide a link for that so you can check it out. So Alexa's another installment of Extended Harmony's Eastman Alumni Killing It series. That's the that's the unofficial title. So there's going to be some stuff that we've covered before, some stuff we haven't. But Alexa, you are a native of Connecticut, and you found your way to Rochester because of Eastman. And
yes,
one thing that I think is kind of almost an underground part of the growing Alexa mythology is there was this Earth, Wind, and Fire concert.
Oh, yes.
And you slayed it. Can you give us sort of like the backstage pass version of that? Because you went on stage and you played amazingly, and we'd love to hear about that too. But I mean, how did it happen? I think I'm certainly curious to have the details on that.
Yeah, of course. That was definitely one of the highlights of my time at Eastman and living in Rochester. And it came about because I was very fortunate to be a scholarship student of the Belasco Family Foundation. And at the time, I had connected probably in my freshman or sophomore year with David Belasco, who I think was sort of probably leading the charge on that, and just like was maintaining the connection and the network with Eastman and trying to meet the students that were the recipients of their generosity. And so I connected with him through Bitchin' Kitchen, which was I know, of all things, which was my great friend Owen Broder's brainchild, and that honestly was just like that was another highlight of my time. And I wasn't even playing saxophone in the band because Owen was obviously, the alto saxophonist. So, but it just seemed like so much fun, and it was all my kind of best friends. And so I was like, well, what the hell? I'll just be a backup singer. So that's how I first met Dave Belasco, because we did an event at his family home, and it featured John Legend, which was pretty cool. They had him as like the headliner and everything. So from there, I think it was a day during the jazz festival in June, like maybe a year later, and I got a text from Dave Belasco saying, Are you near Java's? Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire is going to be at Java's like in 5 minutes.
Oh,
and I was like,
my
what?
God.
And I'm a huge Earth, Wind, and Fire fan because it's like what my mom kind of like raised me on, like that music. And so I'm a huge fan, and all my friends think I'm so old and boring, but I knew like a ton of the
Right.
songs, and I didn't like know every song. Like I wasn't that diehard, but I knew the seriousness of the situation.
Right.
So I went over and I just kind of like tapped him on the shoulder and introduced myself, and
Oh
I
my God.
explained that like we had a mutual friend through Dave, and that I was a recipient of his scholarship, and he was like, cool, 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 cool. And he was like, where's your horn? And I was like, oh, it's just across the street, because I was living at 111 on East at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, we have sound check at 4. Like, can you bring your horn over? Maybe we can put something together. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I just walked in, and it was at Eastman Theater, everyone
Right.
was so nice. And they were like, what do you want to play? And I was like, I'll play anything. And he was like, well, why don't we play something that you really know? Like, we don't have to play our music. We can play like a jazz song. So we picked a tune that we all knew, and then we rehearsed it, and then we did it live, and it was great.
Oh my God. That's just,
Yeah.
I end every interview I do with, do you have any advice for aspiring artists? And, well, I'll ask you that again. We'll have about 20 minutes. You can marinate on it. But it's really like, that's one of those things where, everyone sort of tells you that it's important to have connections and you should just introduce yourself to people. And I know I'm one of these people because I don't like anyone telling me what to do, but like that was such an easy, it took a lot of courage. It's Philip Bailey, for God's sakes, like that like you said, you knew the gravity of the situation, but that's really sort of one of these small scale poignant things. Like, you just introduced yourself, and not only did you have this amazing experience, or you talk about it, it's a formative experience, but that was kind of a launching point. I know you're a rising star, as I said in the intro, and I know your career will continue to grow. But that's kind of like a flashpoint moment, where you can say like,
Yeah.
I did something this badass, and I can go from there. So we'll ask again about the advice, but I feel remiss if I didn't throw that one out there. The other thing I think, what really strikes from the outside looking in about you is not just that it's not just your playing is so amazing. It's your commitment to education that is really important to all of us that are connected at Eastman, like myself and other alumni, like our glorious leader, Nick Finzer, who's very committed to education as well. You've taught at Birch Creek, which is Jeff Campbell, bass teacher, bass faculty at Eastman. But you've also started your own jazz camp, Rockport. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually another one of those kind of situations where I just went in and introduced myself. I had like the opportunity to seek out an internship in the music business field because I was an arts leadership program student at Eastman. And so they basically fund your internship for you. And so my family is mostly based in the Rockport, Massachusetts area. And so that's where I would spend my time when I was not in school. And it's a beautiful little like quirky beach town. And I didn't want to leave. And so they have this nonprofit there that I noticed was programming mostly classical music. I didn't see too much jazz at the time. And I was just kind of curious, like, I had always loved being a jazz camp student, all through middle and high school. And my dad was sort of the one that was like, maybe you should ask if they'll want to start a jazz camp, or like, at least you could like even work in the box office or something, like just to get started. So we walked down there one day and I just knocked on the door and I said, is there someone I could talk to about education? I have an internship opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And the woman who, I almost missed her. She was like going to run an errand. We were talking and she actually also went to Eastman, which was totally crazy. Her name is Stephanie Wolf, and I think she did her undergrad in violin and her master's in theory. Maybe in the 80s or, I don't remember the exact year, but, we totally hit it off. And so I started out like, I was working in the box office, like stamping and mailing the tickets and everything. And as part of the job. And then also I garnered like 5 students and just worked with them from like 9 to 12 for like a week. And then we put on a little concert at the farmer's market. And that was 2014. And now it's, I guess it's grown to this year. This year there will be 11 of us teaching. Well, 9 of us teaching, and two young women from Eastman that I've taken on as interns, which is awesome. So I'm kind of trying to keep that connection through Eastman, because I think, I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that I had to make this happen. And we are hoping to stay consistent with our high enrollment. So we're hoping like between 120 and 150 students.
Holy moly. That's impressive.
It's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot. That's what I was doing this morning. I'm sitting in my hotel room, and I have, all the papers spread out here. And so, it's good.
Right. Exactly. It's a way to flex the organizational muscles for sure. I had this as a question for later, but you gave me a really good lead in here. Jazz is always at an interesting time. I think that's just sort of a reflection of what jazz is. But right. Jazz is also in sort of a parallel to what is happening in our culture around us with this greater awareness of really gender and sex roles in society. And jazz has been notorious for a very long time of being a boys' club. And there were a lot of stories that came out late last year about all of these sexual assault allegations about women sharing their stories. I actually believe Lauren Sevian, your bandmate in LSAT, wrote about her experiences. And
she did.
So I think it's an interesting thing where, much like our current society, people are recognizing that, oh, hey, these things did happen for a really long time, but it's also, you're not only seeing more women in jazz, but it's not just the, oh, hey, I'm a singer and I've got a backing band. I've interviewed Katie Ernst on the show, who is a great singer, great songwriter, incredible bassist. You and Lauren, excuse me. The list goes on. I could name more and more, but I want to kind of get your sense of this on how you see the jazz environment changing in this regard, about how jazz becoming more aware of female artists. Everyone, there's more of a place for female artists now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. It's interesting. Like, I feel like I see it from 2 different kind of perspectives. I see like, I guess because I spend so much time with, male colleagues and friends, I sort of see it. I try to see like what the experience is for them. And, I just like have always tried to surround myself with people that, are respectful and that I aspired to like play like them, or I admired their work ethic and their playing, and they're good friends, and they're, so because like just of the nature of our business, like it goes so far beyond just like how you can play. It's also like nobody wants to hire you if you're not easy to work with, So in general, like I always try to say like it's about being a good person first.
Right.
And I think that's why like I have had very uncomfortable and unnecessary experiences with like harassment and like inappropriate whatever, but I am also grateful for like the people that I know have always supported me and like kind of been champions and vouched for me. And so so I think for the people that I know that are like good friends of mine, it's like oh wow, like we didn't even realize that all this stuff was happening, because sometimes it's like easy to kind of let things slide and you don't even know. Sometimes you just don't really see things for what they are. But then on the other hand, like I have heard all these stories from these women that are coming out, and I'm also shocked, like coming out with some of these stories that I'm also shocked about. But then you look at them and you're like, oh wait, like I was in a situation like that, and I didn't even think that was harassment. So I think that everyone's eyes, like on either side, whether like you've been experiencing it or you haven't, like are being opened, and that's great. But I also think like coming up as a young female, like I was always the only one. So I wasn't really like making space either. Like it sort of like generated this competitive environment where like there, like, you know, big band competitions, like there would be like the band and then maybe like the one female. And it was kind of like, oh, like, what is she doing? Like, does she sound good? Like, how does she play? You know? And so I think that generated somewhat of a competitive, like there can only be one mentality. And now I just think that, and with like how enrollment is increasing for female students in jazz education programs, and you know, everyone's playing at, you know, no one's lacking in ability, like people are getting recognition for their ability. I think everyone's realizing that it's time to make space, so it's great.
All right, that was a really great answer. Thank you for your insight and perspective, Alexa. Really appreciate it. So you mentioned people are kind of understanding. You mentioned that it's not just how you play; it's how are you to work with. But if I may say, your playing is amazing, and you're doing all of this amazing stuff. You're subbing in for Jazz at Lincoln Center, which I mean, I don't even, you know, there's a bass right next to me that I'm filming, and, you know, like I can't, it's mind blowing to me to think that someone who's like not a legend is playing in that ensemble. So for you, I really am curious. I'm just, how did the first opportunity come about? How do you handle being in that situation? How do you prepare for it?
It was, I mean, that has also been one of the highlights of my career thus far, for sure. And I'm really, grateful to Winton for the opportunity. It actually, I mean, I met Winton a while back when I was in high school through the Essentially Ellington program, but we didn't really like reconnect until I had moved to New York been there a couple of years, and like started teaching for Jazz at Lincoln Center. But that was not through Winton. It was like, you know, through the people that work in the offices. But I decided to audition, or I was applying for Juilliard for my master's program. And he was at the audition. And so I did my audition, you know, made it to the final round. And I was like, oh boy, you know, I don't know if I'm going to really get in. Like I wasn't sure that I played my best, and you know, you're always playing with a rhythm section you've never met, and usually, and I was kind of like, yeah, well, you know, if I don't get in, at least I tried, because I had tried for another year prior, and I wasn't able to due to like outside circumstances, like I wasn't even able to attend the audition, so I was kind of like, I sort of felt like this was my last shot. And then I came home and I was like, okay, I'm proud of myself. Like, who knows what's going to happen? And then I got a phone call that was like, Winton, I got a phone call from a friend who said, Winton just called me. He really liked your playing. He loved your playing. Like, great job. And I was like, okay, thank you. I think I got a text, and I was like, okay, thanks. Like, that's amazing. Wow. Like, that's so amazing. I can't believe it. Like, why would he have called, you know, somebody, why would Winton have called someone? And then I got like an email or a text like a 15 minutes later that was like, are you available to join JLCO for these 2 weeks next month for a tour and the gala and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the details. And I was like, yes! I fell to the floor. I was like, oh my God. My roommates were like, are you okay? Like, what's going on?
Oh man.
And I mean, because that's really been, I play in a lot of big bands. I love playing in big band. I love playing lead alto, and to be able to sit next to Sherman Irby, who I just think, you know, he's an incredible lead alto player. And I just was like, wow. So that's what I did. And as far as, I think you asked about preparation, I mean, they sent me the music and I just didn't do anything else. I mean, I have like, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I'm a little bit of like an over preparer.
Right.
And it can sometimes be to a fault, but like with this, I was just like, I had a notebook and I was listening to all the recordings and making notes of like anything that they could possibly have done differently from what I'm seeing on the charts. Like measure 49, like somebody, like he did a scoop here, like measure 50, like they did a gliss here, like they, maybe this is an F natural. Like it was just like anything possible that like could be different or that, I needed to catch. So I just, that's all I did for like a month.
Well, it paid off.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we had a great time, and they were so gracious and warm and welcoming. And I mean, I was really nervous the first morning that I went in for rehearsal. And but I mean, I think that like my training, both at Eastman and just kind of like having freelanced in New York afterwards, just kind of, how to like walk into a situation and do a good job. But it's like, you can be freaking out on the inside. It's okay.
Right. One thing you talked about in that answer that I wanted to touch on, Nick has a sort of an ongoing series talking about jazz education. Should you do it? What's the continuation? So you mentioned applying for Juilliard. Well, I found out you got in because you did this promo video with them, which you just nailed. And can you tell us about your decision to go back to school, what prompted it, and what you're looking to get out of it, especially with the full schedule you're keeping otherwise?
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted to get my master's, and if not, like at least my master's, because I knew that I wanted to eventually hold a position at a college or a university conservatory situation. And it seemed like when I was doing my undergrad, it seemed like the requirement was heading in the direction of you needed to have a DMA or a PhD of some sort. And so I was like, okay, well, I definitely have to at least get my master's. And then I was sort of hoping that, maybe I would be lucky, like to have significant professional experience to kind of equate to the higher degree. But yeah, and I also sort of felt like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I didn't want to be, I felt like I think that I was definitely scared. I was definitely a little bit scared of Juilliard at first. Like I tried once and it didn't work out just because of, a family situation. I couldn't make it. And I was thinking maybe that's a sign that I shouldn't go. And then I tried again and I was like, I can definitely do this. Like, and if I don't get in, it's not the end of the world. But I think I was afraid, like, if I didn't get in, then I would just like feel like, no one wants to get the one that got rejected. So, yeah, but I just decided like, why not? And I knew that, that was really the only other school that I wanted to go to after having gone to Eastman. And especially because I was like, basing myself in New York City, I thought it would be a great opportunity to further some connections and networking. And also there were some, kind of holes in my foundation, just like in terms of my jazz knowledge and things that I wanted to really sharpen up, and they happen to be sort of fundamental elements of the Juilliard Jazz program and mission. So it seemed like a natural fit, and I'm really glad that I did it. I'm loving it, and I'm having a blast. I mean, the hard part is definitely trying to maintain my professional career, which like I'm trying to constantly like build and trying to hustle more stuff. But then it's like you have to make sure I can't, can't not be in school. So I'm just trying to like, show everybody that I'm committed to them.
Right.
But
that was a great lead into my next question. So I'm not asking this from sort of a technical perspective. I don't, but how do you mentally keep yourself together and keep yourself sane through doing all this? I mean, you mentioned one of your personality traits is being an over preparer and being fastidious and being detail oriented, but how do you I guess actually the crux of this question is what do you do to maintain your mental health when you're doing all these things?
Yeah. I am still working on it. But
aren't we all?
Yeah, like totally still working on it. But I actually, and this is something that I heard from Winton a long time ago, and now whenever I talk about it, he's like, "You never got that from me. Like you're telling me like," and I'm like, he's like thinking that I'm giving a lesson, but I'm like, no, this is your lesson. But he like schedules his day down to the minute, and builds in his free time too. So like says like you schedule your downtime, and that has just been so helpful for me, because otherwise I'll just take on so much and then look back and be like, when was the last time I've eaten? I don't even know. And the other thing is, like, I'm trying to get better about saying no to stuff, because I'm learning that like I'm always gonna be feeling like I'm just the type of person, like, I just want to give the people what they want. So, like, when someone asks me to do something, like, my first inclination is to just be like, yes, and then, like, make it work. But by taking, like, even a day to just say, like, oh, hey, can I get back to you tomorrow and look at my schedule? Like, it actually allows me to really look at if I can really make it work, like, instead of just forcing. And so I'm learning to say no to things, and also to just schedule time for myself.
It's important. You know, we all have little ways of keeping us sane, and mine is pick up basketball. I've had one too many sprained ankles and broken noses, so I think I might have to. Well, I can't jump, so that's why it happens. You know.
Yeah, maybe you need to swim. You have to do swimming.
I actually do kind of have a swimmer's body. I've got these like bulldog shoulders, and like cuts through the water. But I used to be quite a swimmer when I was younger. But wow. Anyway, we got off topic. Wrapping this up, we mentioned it earlier, where this is the final question. We've talked about a lot of stuff that can help anyone listening, but I like to phrase this question in this way, and we'll see what happens. Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
I would say, well, I guess I have a couple other things that we haven't touched on already, but I would say just write everything down that you want to do. Like write everything down, all your goals, like no matter what, if they're not too crazy. Like I had it written down in 2014 that I wanted to play with the Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra, and then I wanted to do this and this, and like if you see those things on your bedroom wall like, every day, it helps, and it helps to move forward. And then I would also say, like, just stay true to your voice and your like musical voice, and also just as a freelance musician, like what feels right to you on how to live your lifestyle, and how to create your own routine. Like nobody is the same, so it seems like everybody's supposed to do it this one way, but really you can create your own adventure. And I feel like outside in music, and Nick Finzer is a really good example of that, because he is just someone that's doing everything, and he's doing it all at a really high level, and it's a testament to his organizational skills and your organizational skills and everyone that's there, just like keeping it all together, but like doing what's right for you.
Right. And before we get you out of here, are there any upcoming projects you want to tease? I know LSAT's working on a new album, right?
Yeah, LSAT. It's Lauren is doing a record with Positone Records, and so we did a few LSAT tracks on that, and then I'm going to be working with Positone this coming fall. I think, just going to keep plugging away with Rockport Jazz Workshop. Got some touring here with Diva and Arturo O'Farrell, and going to be working on some more stuff for my quartet, which we had a week at Dizzy's not too long ago, and I'm going to try to start building that up. So, yeah, we'll see. Stay tuned.
We will. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Alexa. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
The Alexa Tarantino Quartet, y'all. Good.